So I'm going to hand over now to Donna, who will be talking about creating a best place to work culture. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you very much, Lee. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today. Before we get going, I just want to give a big thanks to the D2D Organising Committee and the billions of volunteers that are here today helping out. And of course, all of our sponsors that gave us the cashola to do this today and to make it such an awesome event. So thanks to all of them. So why are we here? Well, to hear about creating a best place to work culture and winning a best place to work award. But this talk isn't just about how to win the award. It's about building a culture that's actually deserving of an award. I'll try and leave plenty of Q&A time at the end, and I'm really passionate about this topic, so please feel free to come and chat to me later. I'll be here right till the end of the after party. So quite a few of you know me already, but for those that don't, I've got 20 years of experience building exceptional teams within the IT industry. My passion is creating environments where people can connect, learn, inspire, and achieve. And I do this in my day job at Redify as a state delivery manager, as well as for a whole bunch of not-for-profit community groups as well, such as Witwer, Node Girls Perth, Play Up Perth, ACS Women, D2D Perth, and SQL Saturday. Over the past 6 months, I've assisted the Redify WA team to grow from 20 to 40 consultants. And previous to this at Ignia, I enabled the team to grow from 20 to 120. And we were recognised with a multitude of awards, including the number 8 and number 6 BRW Best Place to Work Award. Over the past 6 months, I've also built an event subcommittee for WITWA, Women in Tech WA, of 5 people, and we've grown the bi-monthly events from an average of 20 people to 70 people per event. And we've had multiple events of over 200 people. So why? Why try and make your place the best place to work? The major reason is that every company now is a tech company. And all of us know, because most of us are in tech, there's a huge war for talent. So by creating a best place to work, it helps you to attract and retain staff. And we've heard a bit about that in Will Webster's talk. People are our competitive advantage. And as an employee, one of the benefits is that you get to enjoy where you work and work in a great place. So it's kind of a win-win for all of us. Some really interesting stats is that right now on LinkedIn, there are over 2.5 million IT jobs being advertised at this very moment. And in Australia alone, there's over 20,000 IT jobs being advertised. So to put that in perspective, thousands of your competitors are also fighting for the same candidates. So most of you have probably heard of work-life balance, right? It's one of the first things that I think about when I think of best places to work. And every company that is trying to get staff is spruiking, work-life balance, work-life balance. I don't really believe in work-life balance. I believe that we've got one life, so it's work-life integration is what we should be calling it. And I want to tell you a little bit of story, I guess, about why I feel that way and something that's shaped my life. So I was 17 years old and I was at a shopping centre at my lunch break. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh crap, I'm running late again to get back to work. For those of you that know me, nothing much has changed. I'm always running late for everything. So I race towards the traffic lights. Don't run, I walk, because I still don't run, I walk. So I walk as quickly as I can towards the traffic lights. And I look at the lights, it's a 6-lane highway, my work's just across the road, and there's a little red man. And I'm like, I don't have time to wait for the green man. Who waits for the green man? So I look left, I look right, and I run. The next thing I remember is an intensely loud sound of cars zooming past me. And I couldn't see anything, but I could just hear this zoom, zoom, and it was so intensely loud. And I remember being afraid because I was like, oh my God, a car's going to hit me. And I tried to roll up my legs because I think at that point I was laying down and I couldn't move. The next thing I remember was the sound of my friend and colleague's voice, Leanne. And she said to me, you're in an ambulance, Donna, everything's going to be okay. The next thing I remember was the sound of a voice saying, we can't move her, we're going to need to cut off her clothes. And I must have been starting to come around a little bit by this stage, because all I could think was, oh my God, please don't cut off my clothes. I had a work uniform on and it had cost me $120. And at 17 years old, earning 75% of the adult wage, that was like a whole week's salary. But they did anyway. The next thing I remember was actually waking up. And I was in a hospital and my family were there, and there was a doctor showing through some x-rays telling me that everything was okay. And I didn't have any broken bones or any injuries other than a few scratches on my fingers. What I found out later, and this was by talking to the driver, obviously you've probably figured out I got hit by a car, and talking to the lady who was driving the car, who was way more traumatised by the whole event than me. She said that she saw me standing on the side of the road and she thought I looked directly at her, and then I just ran straight in front of her. And she was going 60 kilometres an hour and she didn't have time to even put on her brakes. So I rolled onto the car bonnet, I smashed the windscreen, broke it with my head. My head was pretty sore for a while after that, and landed on the ground on the other side of the car. So that whole experience for me was an incredible experience, because it really made me realise that I could have been gone. My life could have been over, and I wouldn't have had any warning. I didn't see the car. I had no idea. I was unconscious for hours. And it just could have been over. I wouldn't have had a chance to tick things off my bucket list or have regrets. I just would have been gone. So for me, that experience has really shaped the whole way that I live my life. I believe that life is too short and you can be gone tomorrow. So make today count and do what you want to do and do what you enjoy doing. And on that, we have the power to choose. We have the power to choose how we live our life, where we work, what we do every day, what goals to set, and how we make a difference in this world. And the talk earlier today on making a difference in the world was amazing. And, we all have that choice. Now, some of us don't know what we want to do. We don't know what we enjoy. We don't know what our passion is. So if you don't know, that's okay. But there's tools that there are out there to help figure that out. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and his model of the golden circle, and Will had that in his talk earlier as well. I feel like there's going to be quite a few things that Will's already covered, but that's good. But in his book, How to Find Your Why, it really talks you through some practical steps of how to figure out what those passion areas are and what it is that you enjoy and what it is that you should be doing with your life. So I'd highly recommend it. The other technique that I've used before, and I recommend, is to think about if you won lotto. Like, we all think about, oh my God, like, what if I won lotto? But actually think it through. So think about, sure, I might travel the world for 12 months or do some crazy stuff for 12 months. But then after that, when that stuff starts to get a little boring, how do you fill your time? What does your life look like? And if you really reflect on that, then you can start thinking about, well, how can I turn that into something that I can make money out of and it can be my job? And you know what? This is trial and error. So don't be afraid to fail. I've had lots of different careers, from childcare to recruitment to HR to delivery management. Just keep following whatever it is that makes you happy and whatever it is that you enjoy and are passionate about. Look for secondments. Look for sideways moves within your company if you want to try out different roles. And look for sideways moves to other companies if you want to try out new companies. One of the other great things that I read recently was the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F-U-C-K, and I am getting recorded, so I don't think I can say that word. But it's an awesome book, and one of the best tips out of that book was that our brains love solving problems. So if we solve all of the problems, our brain will create more problems for us. So when you're living your life and when you're looking at your job, find a job that has problems that you enjoy solving, because you're just going to need to keep continuously solving them, because that's what our brains love doing. So that was a really big segue into building a best place to work culture. But there were two main points that I wanted to make. One is that it's no one else's job or responsibility to make you happy at work. Only you have that power. Patrick's talk was great, and just then for anyone that heard it on toxic developers, and one of the things around that is internal versus external locus of control. And if people haven't read up on locus of control, most of you probably have, but have a bit of a read of it, because if you're not sure whether maybe you are a toxic developer, external locus of control is generally where they focus. Internal locus of control means that you have the power to control your actions, how you react, your behaviours, how you reframe things. We have that power ourselves. And the other thing is that all of us as employees have the power to help make the place we work a best place to work. It will happen a lot quicker if you don't rely on HR or managers to do it for you. One of my consultants recently came up to me and told me about some issues that he saw with the grad program. And he asked me whether he could have some time dedicated to owning it and running it and putting in place some of these solutions. I was like, hell yes. So if you go to a leader with a problem and with a solution and you want to own it and drive it, most leaders are going to say yes. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So the actual award itself. There's lots of different culture awards. One of the biggest ones used to be what was known as the BRW Best Place to Work Award, done by Great Place to Work. Now, one of the main reasons for getting an award like this under your belt is staff attraction. In tech, most of us know that we're not just looking for local candidates. We're looking for candidates from interstate and from overseas. Now, when they're looking and comparing all these different companies that are advertising, because we know there's 20,000 job adverts out there just in Australia alone, what are they looking for? Every company says, yeah, we're awesome, we've got a great culture, come and work for us. So if you can tie an award onto all of that marketing material and your employer branding, it straight away gives candidates something a bit more tangible. And they can go, you know what, this company must be a great place to work because they've been awarded something. They've gone through a process and they've been given an award. So it's a really, really good tool. And I guess a specific example of how this worked for me as someone recruiting staff previously, I don't know if anyone's used LinkedIn to recruit staff, but they have a program, they have in-mails. So you can send emails to people that you don't know and approach them and try and connect with them to get them to come through your recruitment process. Our in-mail response rate, the acceptance rate, went up by over 25% after we had an award. Just by writing on that email, we're number 8 best place to work, or we're number 6 best place to work. 25% increase in acceptance, which is huge. I think the average acceptance rate is about 8% of in-mails. It's super, super low. So how do I actually win one? With the BRW Award, there's 2 main components. The first one is a culture survey. So the Great Place to Work send out an anonymous survey to all of your staff. The main tip here is that it's a really high completion rate that you need. It's about 95%. So you do need to let your staff know that there is a survey coming, and please can you fill it out? And obviously you want to hope that they're going to say good things, otherwise there's no point. The second part is a document where they ask you a whole heap of questions about how you do things. And I guess the main thing I want to make clear here is they're not looking for policies, procedures, blah, blah, blahs. Although, you know, if you've got some of those, you can add them. But they're looking for real life examples. They're looking for pictures. They're looking for quotes from your employees. They're looking for stories about your employees. They actually want real pictures. For our second submission, for our first submission, we had some marketing help because we'd never done it before and we didn't know where to start. For our second submission, based on the feedback we'd gotten, I just wrote it myself because they don't care about it being all schmick and amazing. They just want to know the real stories. So if you've got great stories and you can get your people to tell them and put that into a document, that's what they're looking for. So specifically, how you drive things like communication across the company, how you thank your employees, how you make them feel welcome when they join, how you're transparent across your organisation is a big one, how you enable career progression, and then real life stories for all of those things. So in terms of what actually makes a great place to work, in my experience, it's these 6 main areas. So a best place to work is all about culture. And what is culture? Culture is values, beliefs and behaviours that are shared and demonstrated across your company. There's some common themes in tech around values, around the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Googles of the world, And they're around ownership, collaboration, learning, and innovation. So they're some of the key ones that come up again and again and again. Ideally, though, you want to involve your teams collaboratively when you come up with these values or beliefs, because I think we all know one person doesn't make a culture, every single person in your organisation do. So ensuring that you're picking the right ones and that everyone's on board with them is really important. Otherwise, they won't be shared values. And your company doesn't need to be a startup to do this. You can do this with an existing company. At Redify, for example, Rob Moore led the charge to create some core beliefs that you see up here today. And this was only 12 months ago. So he did this with a group of people, and they did it on Yammer, completely transparently and collaboratively, and they got engagement from people. They got people to talk about what they wanted their beliefs to be, what they thought our culture was, what we wanted this to look like. And by choosing these collaboratively, it means that people have really bought into them and own them and drive them. When I first joined my previous company, Ignia, we had about 25 people at the time, and they hadn't gone through that process of creating shared values. So it was easy. So I reached out to all of the staff. I got everybody involved in, it was a bit old school, email and phone and stuff, you know, back in the day, quite a few years ago now. And I got people to talk to me about, you know, what they thought our culture was, what they wanted it to be. I got them to send me pictures or words or stories to describe what they wanted it to look like. And we came up with our values collaboratively. And that was one of the key reasons that helped us to double in size over 12 months and to win a Best Place to Work award. So it's a really important part. The other major component of shared values is rewarding the behaviour that you want to encourage. And also thinking about the stories that you tell as well around the behaviour you want to encourage. I was at an event a few weeks ago now, and it was quite a high-profile person who was speaking, and she was talking about telling stories to drive your culture and behaviour. And I was like, yeah, 100%, totally agree. Anyway, she was talking about in the interview process. So instead of in an interview saying, this is the criteria we want, these are our expectations, telling the candidate a story about your culture and about people in your organisation who you're rewarding and are examples of the behaviour that you want to portray. And she told this story about a graduate, and there was a graduate working on a team project, and the project was due on the Monday, and the graduate came in and spent the entire weekend working on this project to really take it to the next level, so that on the Monday when they delivered this project to the customer was absolutely blown away, and it was fantastic. And she was talking about, you know, how awesome this grad was because they went above and beyond and they really, you know, made this project a success. And for me, I was thinking about it and I was like, do I want my graduate or my staff to come in and work all weekend on a project? No. You know, do I want the hero complex of one person coming in and putting in a whole heap of hours to make something awesome instead of working with a team? No. So for me, when I thought about that story, it displayed a culture that I wouldn't want for my company. So you need to be really careful about these stories that you tell, because that's what actually drives your culture. This is a huge area and definitely one of the most important, although I probably say that about all of them. But everyone knows you don't leave companies, right? You leave managers. So how about instead of having managers, we have leaders? And I want to make it clear that anyone can be a leader. You don't need to have a manager title or be in a senior position to act like a leader. I've been upwards managing and leading for much, much longer than having a specific manager title. Title can help, absolutely, but it's not necessary. People follow great leaders, and so the title will come if you actually behave like a leader. So if you do want to win the Best Place to Work award, you need to have good leaders. If they have gaps, provide them with training. There's so much great leadership training out there. We recently had a session with a consultant from Sydney named Georgia Murch, and it was around specifically communication for leaders. And one of the best tips she gave was nip it in the bud. Nip things in the bud. So if you see something that's a bit of an issue, jump on it quickly before it escalates, and things will be a lot easier. And I think some of that resonates, you know, with Pat's talk again about toxic developers. If you see little issues, jump on them quickly and early. Illuminate Group is a local WA company, and they do some awesome training around innovation and also general leadership courses. They also have a course that's run through the Department of Training, so it's heavily subsidised by the government, which means that it's cost effective and it's awesome. Win-win. So there's really no shortage available. I also work with a company called Coach Connect, so it's kind of the same principle as an EAP offering to your staff, but it's actually coaching, so it's for self-development and self-improvement. So if you're interested in any type of training, always happy to talk about that stuff and connect you with anybody that I know later on. So some of the main areas as a leadership team that the leadership team needs to focus on is autonomy, mastery and purpose. And once again, Will covered this, Dan Pink in his talk as well. The leadership team needs to set the vision. Where are we going and why? And then provide the empowerment and the ownership for the team to figure out how we get there. And obviously the leadership team's there to support them, but let your team be empowered to own it and come up with the how. Task-driven environments are gone or going. Firstly, task-driven jobs are the first ones getting replaced and automated. And secondly, younger generations aren't interested in task-driven jobs anymore. There's no fulfillment in them. So it needs to be more than that. The other benefit with providing ownership and empowerment is that flexibility doesn't become an issue anymore, because it doesn't matter when or where people are working, because they've got things that they own and that they're accountable to deliver. So you don't have to worry about that flexibility conversation anymore. There's heaps of stats to show that people's primary reason for coming to work isn't money. So leaders need to give them more than that. They need to inspire and set a vision. The other key area is transparency. Once again, that's been touched on already. Transparency and clear expectations. What equals success? And how are decisions made? One of the things that I've been very impressed with working at Redify is the level of transparency. So our intranet can be edited by anyone across the organisation, and it contains literally everything. It hooks up to Power BI, which reports on all of our revenue across the organisation, what all of the rates are, the charge-out rates for consultants, like literally anything to do with financials are all completely transparent. All of our targets as well are all completely transparent for everyone across the organisation. Decision-making, Yammer. Yammer is used for probably 95% of the decision-making, and it's completely collaborative and open. So leaders and anybody can post something on Yammer, think we should do this, looking at a new initiative, and everybody can just jump on, give their opinion, and implement something if it all goes well. Another thing is flatter structures. So at Redify, instead of having a state manager, we have a leadership group. And that leadership group collaboratively makes decisions and sets strategies for the state. So flatter structure is something that again and again is coming up that people are looking for now in new company design. Another key area is empathy and emotional intelligence. Now, in my opinion, you can't be a leader if you don't have these. Might be harsh, but that's my opinion. I've seen so many tech people promoted in the past because they're a subject matter expert in what they do. And the only way to move up to the next role was to be a manager or a leader. But they either hate it because they actually don't enjoy the role because it's not what they want to do, or they're just really terrible at it because they're not interested in getting to know people. Replacing yourself. Great leaders look to replace themselves. We're moving to a very different way of working in job design now. Back in the day, there was this linear career pathway, so you had to really protect your role because only you could have that role, and there was only one way to go, and you wanted to protect it so that you could get that job. It's not like that anymore. So as a leader, if you can mentor and upskill people around you to replace yourself, there's so many new jobs getting created every day that you can move into, so you don't have to have that fear anymore. And this one was definitely covered already, leading by example and practicing what you preach. This is one of the Whitwer events we had a few months ago with some of my role models up here, and hi Mandy. But at this event on role models, these ladies shared their stories of leaders who inspired them throughout their career. The quickest way to build trust and respect is getting hands-on with your team. So be prepared to do whatever they have to do, and always do what you say you'll do. I've worked with so many leaders that don't do this, but it's such a simple thing. Do what you say you'll do. If you say you'll be somewhere at a certain time, sometimes maybe a couple of minutes late, but be there at a certain time. If you say you're going to go to a meeting, go to that meeting. And if anything changes, let people know. There's nothing worse than managers that just don't rock up for a meeting and you've rescheduled things to be there and they don't see that you're valuable enough or important enough to attend. It's just a massive, what was the walk of the dead culture thing, whatever that was awesome. So things like stacking the dishwasher as a leader. If you things like that, getting coffee for the team as a leader. All these little things, it's amazing how much credibility and respect you'll get from doing these things. And being authentic and genuine as well. I talked to you about Georgia Murch doing the training for us recently, and one of the best sayings that she had just blew my mind. It was, people hear your content, but they smell your intent. And oh my God, it literally just blew my mind because it's so, so true. And for me, that is all about authenticity. So people hear your content, but they smell your intent. If you're not genuine, people will know. If you've got an agenda, people will know. People are the most important part of any business, in my opinion. It might be a little biased because I do love people. But seriously, people are a competitive advantage. And we're quite a way away still from having AI with the level of EI and empathy to replace people completely. Oh, and this is my lovely team here. All adorable. I think they're all here today. Most of them are here today. And hiring is one of the biggest challenges for organisations, right? So getting great people. And once again, Will touched on that in his talk as well earlier today. If you look at the sponsors, who's hiring out of the sponsors? Seriously, all of them. So we're all trying to hire. And without giving people training around hiring, people just hire people like themselves. We just default to hiring people who we get along with and who are the same as us. Hiring for culture fit can just be an excuse for this, to hire people that you like and that you get along with. So you need to create some structure and some real interview questions that are around your values and your beliefs. So they're not about this grey culture, they're about your values and your beliefs. Specific examples of how people demonstrate those values. Great people want to work with great people, and it really builds momentum. So in the 3 companies that I've most recently worked with, creating a best place to work culture and hiring great people has increased the referral hiring rate to over 50% of all hires. And I've seen it get as high as 75%. So if you can have great people and create that momentum, hiring becomes a no-brainer. At Redify, we've literally got a line of people waiting to join us because we have great people and our referral process is just so huge and so strong. So on that, help your employees with their personal branding. There's no, back in the day, I've worked for companies that have been afraid to promote their people because they might leave. It's the opposite. If you give your people that help and you pay for them to go to conferences and you give them training so that they can speak at conferences and you help them with their LinkedIn profiles, it comes back so much more. And find out where the people that you want to hire are and then get involved in things like sponsorship, which is what all of our sponsors today are doing. If you know where the people that you're looking to hire are, then get involved in community engagement. And build your own employee brand through your people. So, use your people. That's terrible. I don't mean use your people. But ask... Please, no one tweet that. But seriously, ask your people if they can, do a little video or put a quote on and then promote that on your LinkedIn and on your website. So get your people to help be part of your brand. One of the coolest things I've seen that some companies are starting to do is create this role, dream manager. It sounds a little bit like, whatever, but seriously. So it's not, once again, work-life integration, not work-life balance. So if you want to have engaged, passionate people, why just help your people on their career? Why not have a bigger conversation about their life and who they are? What are you passionate about? What are your goals? And then how can we help you with all of them, not just your career? We really need to think bigger about engaging people and helping people, because if they're passionate and they love their life, they're going to work harder and be happier at work. It's a win-win for all of us. And this is a hot topic, as always. I can't wait till it's not a separate conversation and that it's just the way that we do things, right? But for now, it's still a separate conversation. There are so many stats from all across the globe around financial performance and company success with diversity versus without diversity. A recent McKinsey study showed that companies were 15% more likely to be above the median financial returns if they had gender diversity, but 35% more likely to be above financial return performance with racial and ethnic diversity. So it's a huge conversation, and it shouldn't be a conversation, it just is. It's just factual. We just need to have companies that have diversity, and we need to hire for diversity. And what Will was saying about team makeup, it's exactly this, it's that. It's having diversity across your teams will make your teams more successful and make your company more successful. The study also showed that companies without diversity were in the bottom 25%, and that's huge. So it's a no-brainer. So educate your teams on the benefits of diversity and provide unconscious bias training. Lots of us don't even know the biases that we have. Listening to Will's talk, and sorry, I keep referring to Will's talk, but it was really good. But when he started talking about, and I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but when he started talking about the different roles that you have or the different hats within a team, and he had the first one, was it the lead engineer or something? And he said, she, and he referred to she when he talked through, she would do this and she would do that and she would do this. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, you know, because you just become so used to automatically thinking in your brain, lead engineer, he, like it's just automatic. It's one of these unconscious biases that we're so used to. And when he was saying she, I was like, this is really weird. I don't think I've ever heard that before. It was amazing. And things like, you know, please don't ask the woman in the room to take the minutes. Seriously. Embrace differences. So we all know the best teams have diverse views and opinions. So healthy conflict and debate is a really, really good thing. It helps us to push each other's boundaries to come up with better solutions. Calling people out on biases and inappropriate behaviour. Don't tolerate it, lead by example. And be open-minded to learning and having conversations. In my talk last year, which was around attracting and retention for women in tech, I got some feedback afterwards in the anonymous survey around terminology, so using female as opposed to woman. And I'd never really thought about that before. And then I met Vi Prendergast, who many of you probably know, CEO of Stir Fry Studios, at a Whitwer event a few months back. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind answering some questions and having a bit of a chat, because I hadn't really worked with anyone in transgender before. So she was amazing. I had all these silly questions, and she gave me all this information about how, terminology, female's a real biological term. So transgender women prefer woman as opposed to female. But all these little things that I just would have never thought about. So people will be happy to educate you if you're genuine and you actually want to learn and want to improve and want to create an inclusive environment. So don't be afraid to ask what may be silly questions. Love silly questions. Also inclusivity around having prayer rooms, being aware of cultural events, providing spaces for breastfeeding, breast pumping, all of those types of considerations that we may not make because it doesn't affect us. Think about who's in your organisation, think about who might be joining, and then create an inclusive environment. Thankfully, paid maternity and paternity leave is starting to become a norm, which is amazing, and also paid superannuation while on leave is also starting to become a norm. A bit of a shout out to Work 180. I think they've done an incredible job. They're a job board. I think they've done a great job of targeting diversity candidates, but also encouraging employers to improve on their benefits and considerations to be able to advertise. If you haven't heard of WGEA, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, there's a free application and accreditation you can get that is another part of becoming a best place to work, having those sorts of things under your belt. And lastly on this one, flexibility for everyone, not just women or parents. Let's create an environment where flexibility and diversity is just the way that we work. There's nothing special about it, it's just the norm. And the sooner this happens, the better for all of us, women and men. I've worked with quite a few men and women who will work part-time, not because they have kids, but because they have passions and hobbies outside of work and they want to have time to do those. And that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's just embrace the general flexibility conversation. Honestly, career development, I think, needs a complete redesign for our workplaces of the future, but that is a much longer conversation and a whole talk in itself, and I don't know all the answers, but I think there's a huge amount of work that we need to do here. In the meantime, though, in order to be a best place to work, you do need to have clear, transparent, and objective processes so that people can have control over their own career paths. You also need to make the salary conversations easier and more structured. In a previous company, we used to do reviews behind the scenes. So we'd have a look at people's salaries, and if there was people outside of market rate or bands, we would proactively contact them and give them a salary review. But what this meant is if people weren't outside the bands, they didn't get a review unless they come and asked us. And we all know there's lots of stats that show that women are less inclined to ask for salary reviews. But in my experience, a lot of men that I've worked with as well, especially, if you might be a little bit more introverted, also don't like asking for those conversations. So as a best place employer, create an opportunity where everyone can have a conversation. They know what's going to happen, they know when it can happen, and make the conversation as easy as possible. If you can provide them with, some salary bands or some information to help them with the conversation, make it easy for people and make it fair. And it's not always about promotions. It's often not about promotions, actually. It's about growing and developing. So think about the way that you do performance reviews. And rather than old school meaningless performance reviews, modernise it. At Redify, we use the retro process. So for most of you have probably worked in Agile and know what retros are. If you haven't, feel free to come and talk to anyone at Redify or Bankwest or probably anyone, Rawa. So retros are all about improving and learning and feedback. So we don't have a once a year performance review, we just have retros as often as people want to do them. So some people do them quarterly, some people do them every 6 months, and it's all about learning and improving and setting goals. The last sort of main area from a leadership perspective is collaboration and connection. It's human nature to want connection. And in consulting, this can be a real challenge because you've got people that are working out on gigs, sometimes for 6 months at a time. So you really need to create a structure for connection points. At Redify, we have an 8-week onboarding process. Everybody has a buddy that has catch-ups with them regularly. Everyone has a people partner, and the people partner does regular catch-ups. They have a line manager, they have principal consultant, and then they have a leadership group as well. So all of these different touch points, proactively contact people and catch up with them for a coffee or just to see how they're going. This isn't because people need help. This is just because people want to feel valued and you want it to feel like a community. So you just need to have these regular touch points. Communication methods and avenues can be a tricky one because there's so many. Is it, thanks Microsoft, is it Teams, is it Yammer, is it email, is it Slack, where do we go? So making sure that you communicate how people connect throughout your company. Where do you go to connect and make it easy? And then creating opportunities for group collaboration and connection is really important as well. And at different times. So when you're creating the group connection opportunities, you need to make sure that you consider it once again. Do you have people that work part-time and they don't work on different days? Do you have people who have to leave early because they have to, pick the kids up from school? Are you doing family events, but do you have people that don't have families, and then will they be included? You kind of really need to think about all of your people and create lots of different opportunities for group collaboration. Also group time for innovation, so hack days, workshops, connecting people together who want to do the same type of training. So, have an avenue. We have channels on Teams, and if people want to do AWS, they post on there, I'm interested in this. And then when there's an AWS workshop coming up, we connect all of those people so they can do it together, because everything's more fun with a team, right? Also team building events and social club events. We went to Time Zone recently. At Redify, we have an all-company back-to-base once a quarter. And so everyone comes together and learns and has a bit of fun. Once a year, the whole company, oh, hello, that was loud. Once a year, the whole company flies to a resort over East, which is a little bit OTT. But there's simple, cost-effective things like Friday drinks or Friday lunch or end-of-month drinks. morning teas, fundraisers, fitness activities. There's so many different things that you can do. It's just about somebody putting a structure in place. And engaging people's families. I'm a really big believer in this one, and I think a lot of companies don't do it. It's hard even to get a partner allowed to come to a Christmas party nowadays because of budget, But people's families are there when they've had a tough week, when they're working overtime, when they're stressed out. It's their families that are there to support them. It's their families that they're going and talking to when they're thinking about leaving or taking another job. Engage with their families, not just because you want them on your side so people stay, it is a bonus, but because it's about a sense of community. When you have events and people's families are coming, they get to know each other. In my previous company at Ignia, one of the things that was really cool is that because we had so many people that had moved to Australia from other places, they all became friends outside of work. So they'd go camping and fishing and they'd do stuff, outside together as well. And that was really awesome. And it helped us as a company become a best place to work as well. So it's a win-win for all of us. And then the last bit is creating a culture of gratitude and shouting out great work. So it's great to say thanks. Verbal thanks is awesome. But having a recognition wall, having an awards program, a lot of companies do like a quarterly or an annual award, but more than that, it needs to be more regular. So at Redify, we use a shout-out wall. And this is just a really easy way where people can jump on and they can call out transparently people who have helped them out or have done something awesome for the organisation. And you can recognise teams as well. And then it also ties into an awards program. And then we can choose how often we give tangible rewards out of that as a leadership team, but people are still having that just gratitude environment. As a HR person or a manager as well, the ROI for a Best Place to Work award to have something like this is huge as well. It was one of the things called out in our feedback of why we won an award. So many of you know a lot of this stuff already. I feel like a lot of that stuff is a rocket science. So I'm not trying to tell people to suck eggs. My hope is just to inspire you to continue improving and implementing more things to make your workplaces the best place to work. Because my dream is that everybody loves what they do the same way that I love what I do. So when you go back to your workplaces next week, have a look, but mostly have a listen, and then think about how you can help make it a best place to work. Thank you.